1972, a crack commando unit was sent to prison by a military court for a crime they didn't commit. These men promptly escaped from a maximum security stockade to the Los Angeles underground. Today, still wanted by the government, they survive as soldiers of fortune. If you have a problem, if no one else can help, and if you can find them, maybe you can hire the A-Team.
So, an MSNBC anchor resigns because she was being forced to report pro-Obama propaganda as news.
And that's surprising to who?
The NSA is passing around your sexy photos that you post on or send privately through text messages. If you've ever taken a kind of risque picture of yourself and emailed it to your husband or your wife when they're on a business trip, just to.
Was that the story from Edward Snowden?
We'll find out.
Because I know he talked about why that happened. But is anybody really surprised by that?
No. Well, I'm sure they are, but they shouldn't be. A tweak to Obamacare is going to make more money for the insurance companies and further screw us over.
Is anybody?
Because now the government's in charge of our health care.
Should anybody be surprised by this?
And this wasn't passed by Congress, of course. This is just the president now has the power to just mess with your health care by writing it down. He doesn't have to get a law passed. He doesn't have to amend the Constitution. He can just say some stuff and write it down and sign it, and all of a sudden your taxes go up, your premiums go up, your care can go down. I guess he could probably write down that you're just not allowed to have it at all. And
should anybody be surprised by that either? Because that's what we've been saying for years is going to happen. But not that there's any problem with the legislative branch effectively legislating away any authority they have over 1/6 of the economy and every single person's health care coverage, which is kind of a critical issue. Just saying. But way to go. But way to go, people. Way to go, Congress. Way to go.
You will respect my authority.
Yeah.
Yep, that's where we are in our entire lives.
So with all those stories that would lead you to be mistrustful of the narrative that you would get from the media and from the government.
Well,
now we're now expected to just believe everything we hear that's coming out of that Ukrainian airliner story without, questioning the motives of those involved.
And for some, believe it to the point where they believe we have a right and a duty now to commit acts of violence against those we've decided are the wrongdoers. Local journalist Valerie Garner wrote on her Facebook page on Friday that she can't wait till we can lay the smackdown on those rebels. And I asked a very simple question of her, and that is, why would we be suggesting violence against someone before we actually know what's going on and who did what? Now, a 30-comment thread ensued over the weekend attacking Greg, and not one person bothered to answer the question or explain where it is they get this omniscient knowledge that they know who did what to whom, and therefore we should start pointing guns at them.
They still trust the narrative coming from Washington, and if Obama says that it's bad Russians that did this, and Russians bad, we have to fight Russians again, then they're going to buy it. Again,
are they buying it because their guy's president?
Yes, exactly.
Is it because Valerie's guy is the president? So therefore, whatever the media is at the time is reporting is going to be true, and she supports her guy starting a war with Russia. I mean, if George Bush, if Bob Dole, if Mitt Romney, if Greg Aldridge were president right now, and they were reporting the exact same stuff, would they be anti-war today?
Yes.
Would they be saying we were warmongers?
Yes, they were.
What is going on?
They were anti. How come the glorification of everybody that opposed the Iraq and Afghanistan wars during the Bush administration? Those same people are still protesting the wars. Do you ever hear about them anymore?
No, because Democrats and their supporters have moved on to being warmongers because their guy's the guy making war.
Right, and it's
War's
okay
great
now.
if to these people, if a Democrat makes war, it's fine. If a Republican makes war, it's a political opportunity to attack.
Yep.
What is going on here?
Well, partisan politics trumps.
Nobody would answer my question.
Well, then
Valerie would not answer my question, and all of her little bitty friends wouldn't answer my question. And this morning when I was going to read some of this nonsense so people would understand the mindset that exists with these people, I found out I've been blocked. I've been blocked now on Facebook, and all I did was ask a very simple question and continue to assert that it was a reasonable and fair question to ask. That's all I did.
There are some elements to this story. Again,
what's wrong with you, Valerie?
But think about, there's one story, there's a simple story that came out of this. And, you know, maybe this is made up. I mean, let's just assume that for a second this is true. That Malaysian 17 victim body crashed through roof into Ukraine. This is from NBC, you know, a good left-wing propaganda tool. So I'll read the story. There was a howling. This comes from a lady who lives in Ukraine. There was a howling noise and everything started to rattle. Then objects started falling out of the sky, the 65-year-old retiree said in front of her house. And then I heard a noise, a roar, and she landed in the kitchen. The roof was broken, she said, showing the gaping hole. The dead woman's naked body was still lying inside the house next to the bed. Dozens more dead bodies lay in the wheat fields where the airliner came down on Thursday. Okay, so I just have a simple question. You know, I'm not trying to be cute, but why was the body naked? Did the explosion blow her clothes off?
Well, and not burn her skin off? I don't understand. I don't say it's to be funny, but you know, you ever watch the show Mythbusters? There's a whole myth about you can blow your socks off if you get. Yep, actually I saw that one.
And they proved you couldn't blow your socks off. So I'm assuming that if you can't blow your socks off in an explosion, you can't blow your pants, your underwear, and your shirt off, or whatever she was wearing. Just saying. I mean, it could be.
Maybe all she was wearing was
a dress,
a pair of flip flops, and
a dress,
and a muumuu, and they blew off when she fell from the sky.
Perhaps, but
I'm good at this. Suppose
a muumuu when she's going commando.
I don't know.
It's possible. I mean, it's possible. Anything's possible.
You've got stories saying that some of the bodies they found on the ground at the crash site look like they had decomposed prior to the crash. You've got fingers being pointed. Our president's blaming Russia. He's blaming Putin. Putin's the bad guy now. But I have yet to see us given any definitive evidence of anything, yet we already have people. And people in our midst. Valerie Garner and her friends, they live right here. These are our neighbors.
Peace-loving, communist, socialist.
Yes. And she's basically committing an act of violence against who she's been made to believe by news organizations without any evidence is responsible.
Because, you know, the story is being, you know, well, it's under the, you know, rebels who are Russians, supported by the Russians under their command, which is true, I think, to the most part, and they're trying to hide the evidence. Well, the other side's got may have just as much to hide. So who's hiding evidence from who? I don't know. You don't know either.
Well, it would appear that everybody has a vested interest in pointing the finger at somebody else. I mean, our president, if he can figure out how to make it look like it's Putin's fault, then he has a reason to go to war against Putin. If Putin can make it look like it's not his fault and it's the Ukrainians' fault, then he has an opportunity to a moral authority now to be able to conquest Ukraine.
Everybody's got a vested interest in the outcome of this.
Exactly. There's not one. Where is the singular, unbiased, benevolent person that's going to be able to look at this and tell us the truth, so that we know what really happened, and then can actually make a decision?
Uncle Sam cares about the truth, and Uncle Sam will give you an unbiased, because we don't have any preconceived notions.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, I said that.
But Daddy Obama grabbed Uncle Sam by the throat, drug him out behind the White House, put a gun to his head, and blew his brains into the yard. Uncle Sam's dead.
That was a very sharp graphically. I put a picture in my mind that I didn't really like.
I don't like it either, but it's the reality. Uncle Sam is dead, and what we have now is some strange and crazy, twisted, inhumane version of what Uncle Sam was supposed to be. And it's sickening.
News Guardians on Fox Radio 910.
And we're back.
So, over my family, when we have a family get-together, we like to play Clue.
Clue?
The game, the board game.
Yeah.
Colonel Mustard killed the Mr. Body. And
Colonel Mustard gets a bad rap.
In the conservatory with the lead pipe, So can you walk through how Obama capped Uncle Sam? Did he do it with the revolver in the billiard room, or?
Well, to wholly blame Barack Obama is unfair to Barack Obama. I think Barack just finally popped the final cap, and
so he was laying in the backyard with a couple.
He was out there trying to drag his abused body back into the White House when Obama went out and turned his gun sideways like a gangsta and popped the final cap in him. But
did he hit himself in the face with the cartridge?
Well, when you have a president who so blatantly ignores the rules specifically put in place to limit his power, and just without even an ounce of trepidation or remorse, he doesn't care. I mean, he said as much. If you all won't do, he's told Congress, if you won't do what I want to do, I'll just do it myself. That's not how it works. That's killing Uncle Sam.
That's how it works now.
Well, and just to...
But it's okay. Your legislator is going to craft a strongly worded press release opposing this. So don't worry. Or they'll sue him.
Yeah, they'll take him to court.
Yeah.
And to the point of the story we're talking about, where we don't know enough about this stuff going on with the crashed Malaysian plane to be advocating violence against somebody at this point. Did you hear about the MSNBC anchor that resigned?
You teased at the beginning of the show.
And then complained that they were forcing her to spread lies on behalf of Obama? MSNBC host Alex Wagner, who was the host of Now with Alex Wagner, resigned from her post. From 2.5 years, she did this show, citing ethical and moral concerns. In a resignation letter, Wagner claims she has been spreading lies on behalf of Obama and using her position with MSNBC to falsely promote a brutal dictator. That guy I said popped a cap in Uncle Sam. Well, now that she's no longer employed by MSNBC, she's saying what she really thinks.
She's just a disgruntled employee.
Wagner goes, she wasn't fired, and is trying to get back at her employer. She got fed up with what they were forcing her to do and quit, according to this. Wagner goes on to say, I have spent my entire professional career working toward a position based on false pretenses. I have worked hard to obtain a position with a major news network and expected to be reporting on serious issues. Instead, I am handed pro-Obama scripts and asked to be a mouthpiece for the administration.
Well, I mean, that's what happened to Cheryl Atkinson, too, the reporter from CBS, who did all the really good reporting on the Benghazi and Fast and Furious and some other stories, and basically she got told to stop talking about it, and she quit because she got tired of it and started her own website and doing investigative reporting on her own because she quickly realized that she was not going to be able to do the reporting she wanted to do because it didn't fit the narrative that her bosses wanted to put in place.
Well, and I have a simple request, Valerie Garner of Roanoke, Virginia. If these news organizations are handing their anchors and their reporters what they're supposed to say, true or not true, then when the reports are handed to these people to read what's going on with the Malaysian plane, what reason do we have to believe that they're any more accurate?
None.
And based on that, Valerie Garner, where do you get off deciding that inciting violence against the people that the news media has told you are the bad guy is prudent when you don't know who did what to whom?
Well, and in fairness to Valerie, This isn't just her issue. You know, when you have Libertarian Wednesday once a month or so, I always find it interesting because one of the I'm not a big Robert Sarver fan. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I got a lot of issues with him, but one of the things,
hair.
Well, in the seersucker suit he used to wear, it was hideous. But anyway, aside from policy issues and some fashion stuff, I mean, he got blamed by every right-wing media outlet, and every right-winger I know thinks Robert Sarver was on the payroll by Terry McAuliffe to run against. And there's not really a shred of...
Yeah, we looked into that.
It is not true. I mean, you got money from a guy who gives money to everybody. He just does. And there's no direct evidence Sarvis's motivations are anything but to try and get 10% of the vote for libertarians any way he can.
No, I agree with you.
But most right-wingers have convinced themselves because they've read a blog somewhere that said he got money from this guy who's a left-winger, who really is kind of a middle-of-the-road, gives money to everybody kind of guy, that Sarvis was a plant from the Democrats.
Well, it goes beyond just read it in a blog somewhere. People that these people trust in positions of authority have spread that narrative. And...
Looking for a scapegoat why Kuchinay lost.
Right, and rather than investigate it themselves, take the time to see what they can find out on their own, they trust that person that said that enough to just take whatever they said at face value.
Because it supports their guy. So Obama said
and it's consistent with what they've always been told.
Exactly. So their guy, obviously, so we tend to want to believe the stories that support our own narrative. I mean, we're the same way. When we see a story of where, if I see a story where a person defends their home with a gun, I like that story because it supports a narrative that I believe in, that, the Second Amendment means something, and then, having a gun around the house is inherently a good thing.
But it doesn't stop us critically from trying to find out what actually went on there.
Right.
Because sometimes you may have found out that what was reported at first glance isn't actually what really went on.
Well, there was a story that's floated around for years about how Obama repainted Air Force One and did all this stuff, and it floats around. I get it in my email box about once every 3 months, and the story is patently false. But it supports the narrative that people don't like Obama. Okay, well, I don't like Obama either. But, there's plenty of stuff that Obama's done that you don't have to make up or create a story. There's a meme about him putting the feet up on the furniture that I see that email come. I mean, of all the things that Obama, I'll give him a pass on putting his feet on the furniture if he would stop, destroying the Constitution and burying Uncle Sam in the backyard.
Well, and this position, however well thought out and reasonable it is runs contrary to the way the world works. I mean, we are never going to be, the guys that are loved by the masses of any political ilk, because we won't just tell that group what they want to hear for our own aggrandizement so that we can be popular and powerful. We try to say what we believe is actually really the truth, which often flies in the face of what people accept as real, and therefore, there's not a lot to be made out of that except knowing that you've done the best you can do to be honest.
Well, it's kind of like, Michelle Malkin's site's got a great story on there about over the weekend. Michelle Obama went out to Los Angeles and gave a speech about all the wonderful things Obama's doing to help homeless veterans.
Oh, yeah?
And there was this whole social media feeding frenzy about how wonderful it is, and everybody's talking about how great this is and how all these things are doing. Yeah, in the midst of all this distraction that's going on with Russia, we saw that VA scandal, that was big about 2 weeks ago that the media is just kind of ignoring now.
Yeah.
So one Capitol Hill lawmaker told a story about her car was dented after she reported manipulation of veteran benefit claims in Philadelphia. Other whistleblowers put on leave. There's a retaliation culture as a cancer, said one of the investigators investigating the Los Angeles VA scandal. There's reports of benefits cases vanishing or being mishandled on purpose based on political. There's a 600,000 case backlog. They've been shredding the documents to get rid of the backlog, ignoring. I mean, they're systematic problems all across the VA that the president keeps touting as he cares about Veterans Affairs, yet he's done nothing to address the fact that veterans are dying every day because of this.
Well, to bring this all around, I think this is what went on. This is why I'm blocked on Facebook by Valerie Garner. Because however reasonable my question may have been, they believe so strongly in what they've been told that the idea of questioning that is just ridiculously stupid. So therefore, I'm not actually asking a reasonable question. I'm just being a jerk.
They assume that all of your opposition is predicated on the same kind of partisan politics they believe in.
Yeah, well, they should get it together with the Republicans locally and they'd find out different. The NSA is totally passing around your sexy selfies when we return to News Guardian.
This is News Guardian. News Guardian.
I love your show, man. It's great. We just need to talk about it.
On WFJX, Fox Radio 910.
So, we are back.
That was very observant of you.
Or are we back? My skeptical nature just says, I don't know. Are we back? How do we know anybody's even listening? Well, because I did get some texts.
Well, we have to accept there are certain things we have to accept.
Okay.
Some basic stuff, like, there was a plane crash. I'm accepting the fact there's a plane crash. It all could have been made up. It could have been done in a sound studio somewhere, and it's all just a hoax. Could be.
Well, have you seen video of a plane crash?
I've seen video of the carnage of the plane crash.
And you know those pictures aren't of some other plane crash?
I don't know for sure, but I'm going on the premise that the plane
that there
crashed.
was actually a crash.
Yes, I'm going on that. I'm accepting that premise.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, it's fine.
So
I thought we were done with that.
We are. So you wanted to talk about,
in an extensive interview with The Guardian, that's a British news, National Security Agency whistleblower Edward Snowden emphasized the need for lawyers, journalists, doctors, accountants, priests, and others with a duty to protect confidentiality to ditch unencrypted communication. He also confirmed what many people have joked about since the NSA's surveillance was first revealed. Yes, agents are totally looking at your sexually compromising photos. If you've ever snapped a risque picture of yourself and sent it to your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your husband, or your wife, and thought that it was just between the two of you, well, no, that's not actually how it works. According to Snowden, looking at these pictures is a routine part of life at the NSA, and one that's considered a fringe benefit of a surveillance position.
and it's not surprising. He says, well, what do you expect? You got a bunch of 20 and 30-year-old guys looking through all the stuff.
They're not just guys.
Well, okay. 20 or 30-year-olds looking through the stuff, and they kind of giggle and say, hey, look what I found.
During the course of their work, NSA employees stumble across something that is completely unrelated to their work in any sort of necessary sense. For example, an intimate nude photo of someone. But they're extremely attractive. So what do? They turn around in their chair and they show a coworker who says, hey, that's great. Send that to Bill down the way. Then Bill sends it to George, who sends it to Tom. And sooner or later, this person's whole life has been seen by all of these other people. It's never reported, and nobody even knows about it because of the auditing systems of this are extremely weak. But the fact remains that your private images, your records of your private lives, your intimate moments have been taken from your private communication stream.
Well,
this is a violation of your rights.
But, we got to protect ourselves from terrorists, Greg. Freedom's not free. And if really, if it was that private, you shouldn't have sent it as a picture anyway.
Oh, well,
I'm sorry. I'm just saying that these are all the excuses that are made every day for this kind of... I didn't say you did. You don't make excuse for anything.
No, I don't do this kind of stuff for that very reason, because I've believed for more than 20 years that what we've said on the phone, what we've sent through the mail, and now what we send through email and text isn't private. That government agencies have access and have been looking at it, reading it, and listening to it. I believed this before it was cool.
Don't you trust Uncle Sam? Oh, that's right. Uncle Sam is buried in the backyard of the White House.
No, they didn't bury him. They let him lay out in the backyard to decay and let the vultures pick the meat off of his bones. They didn't even do Uncle Sam the respect of giving him a proper burial over in the cemetery across the way.
Well, they can't do that. They have to prop him up every once in a while, kind of like Weekend at Bernie's.
Nope, it's an actor.
Oh, okay.
It's not really Uncle Sam. It's just a stand-in to make you think he's...
Everybody's been lying to me all this time.
So my question about this, I mean, and maybe it's not true. Maybe the NSA has never looked at any sexy picture that somebody sent to their significant other. Maybe. But just for the sake of argument, if this is accurate, is this the straw that'll break the camel's back? Will people care enough about these kinds of private things that they'll actually rise up and do something about it, or is this just going to be the kind of thing people shake their fists at for a few minutes and then it goes away, but the problem remains?
Until it affects you, it's not going to get anybody but to cluck their tongues and talk about how terrible things are and then go off to work and do their thing.
So somebody at the NSA would have to put a collection of these photos together, build a website, and post them for people to find that their own pictures are there and compromised. And then
yes,
they would rise up and do what? Demand Obama fix it?
Lawsuit.
A lawsuit.
Just saying. I mean, you know, if it's good enough for John Boehner, it's good enough for average Joe who's naked selfies up on.
Now, our listeners are pretty smart. They're probably out there going, well, yeah, duh, you shouldn't send stuff like that. I mean, and I applaud them for being that smart. But the issue here is not whether or not we're smart enough not to send naked photos of ourselves to somebody over the internet or a cell phone. The question here is, when did our government get the authority to look at that stuff, and why? And why did we allow it? And why are we not slapping them around until they stop?
Because, well, you know, there's bigger picture things, blah, 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 and blah, 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 and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of excuses, but... You know, when you casually dismiss your basic rights and let the government do whatever they want, what is government going to do?
Whatever it wants.
Exactly.
Whatever is in its or whatever the individual exercising that government power wants to do for themselves or somebody that they're in cahoots with.
But at least almost half the people, if not more than half the people in this country, are quite happy with the way things are until it affects them. Unfortunately, you're not going to see there's a very large minority of people in this country who have started to open their eyes and recognize Uncle Sam is, if he's not dead, he's on life support. And that the country they grew up in loving is starting to become a country that does not have their best interests at heart. And that awakening is happening, I think, across the country. But there's still most people who are still sort of stuck in this, well, America's great and everything's wonderful and, you know, it'll all get better. And
the America that existed under the foundational principles is great.
Mm-hmm.
The America we have now under the bastardized version of who knows what is not that country.
Well, and we're still living off the fruits of that former system when it was at least partially in place. There's still, you know, we're still the most prosperous society in world history. You know, if you compare.
Well, we're not now.
We still are. We're still living off.
How do you define
the poorest person in America is rich compared to some kid sitting in a Guatemalan slum somewhere?
There are trillions of dollars in debt.
I know.
We don't have any money.
I didn't say that. We're still living off we're coasting on the fumes of what was. It's going to change. And when it changes, people are going to be angry. When they're angry, it depends on who they're going to be angry with. Now, if they're smart, they'll recognize what we've been saying all along is the cause for the coming pain that's coming to everybody in this country. But unfortunately, the people that have been lying to you are going to lie about the rationale and the reason why things have gone bad. They're going to blame people like you and I for what's happened.
I didn't borrow a dime on the credit of the United States.
Well, I didn't say it was a legitimate But they're
Oh,
going
I
to
know.
blame right-wingers for... That's why I think the worst thing that'll happen, the crash will come as soon as you elect a Republican president, because they'll pin it on him.
Interesting.
That's my theory. That's my conspiracy theory.
Interesting. So right here at home, the news reports have been for weeks now. They're finally going to do the big road project out there at Valley View and fix all the problems that we have. You know, some of which I find irritating.
It's very irritating.
But
it's a terribly... Valley View is a train wreck.
It is, but it works.
Sort of. It's better than it used to be since they opened up the intersection across from the airport. That's
You can get there, you can get out of there. The traffic moves okay.
Except for Christmas time.
Once you're in, it wouldn't matter what you did. The Christmas situation is going to be the case.
Well, if he could go both ways on 581 over there by the Target, that would be very helpful.
Well, and it would be helpful. That would be a nice benefit. But right now, our local government is in tremendous debt. Our state government is in debt. Our federal government is in debt. And while we may think, you know, we'd really like to have an interstate exit that goes the other way, we're broke. You can't have those things when you're trillions of dollars in debt all the way down to the locality where they're now going to spend $57 million to fix that problem. I'm not saying I wouldn't like to have it. You know, I'm saying we don't have the money for it.
Can I put on my local government hat now?
Okay.
Well, Greg, you don't understand that if we're going to continue to attract businesses to the area and grow our local economy, we've got to have a vibrant communication and transportation system. And we can't do that with the current consistency, the way that the Valley View Mall is currently consistent. And we've got to take those changes to continue to grow our vibrant and constantly growing our local economy. And we're not paying for it because it's coming from the state and the federal funds. So most of the money's not coming from us. It's coming from the federal government or the state government. So don't worry because we're not going into debt. It's coming from the federal or the state government.
So by that argument then, if I'm trying to get a better job, a really high-paying job, and the car I drive, you know, makes me look like a bumpkin, then I should go down to the Mercedes dealer, buy a $50,000 car, so that I can look good and impress the people that I would be interviewing with, so that I can get the higher paying job. I should incur $50,000 in debt to buy that expensive shiny car, so that I can attract a new employer that'll pay me more money.
Well, that's not what you're doing. You know how it works, because you always go out and buy a $50,000 car before you get the job. Isn't that the way it's supposed to work?
Well, obviously, I guess that's the mindset.
It is the mindset.
That's the rationale. Now, the sad part about this is I'm perfectly okay if people want to make those choices, but I'm not okay with them pointing a gun at me and telling me I have to be involved in that choice with them.
But what you don't understand is that all the debt problems we keep talking about, at least half the society believes that debt problems are no big deal. You're making a mountain out of a molehill. Our debt is completely in line. It's not a problem. You got to have a certain amount of debt to grow the economy. Blah blah blah. You get that same argument from they don't believe that that's a problem. They think it's 3%. I mean, listen to the city of Roanoke. Oh my gosh! I mean, these people talk about debt. I mean, it's such a small. We're going to pay it off in 20 years, and
They're
know,
never
it's an
going to pay it off.
investment.
They've never even talked about paying it off. We've never paid it off. What is this? We can pay it off into what?
I'm just saying what they say, Greg. I didn't say it was true. I was putting on the hat. I took the hat off now.
Okay.
I don't believe it. I'm just saying what they're going to say, and it sounds good. And if not everyone, a sizable, at least we know from the last city council elections in Roanoke that a sizable majority of folks buy that nonsense. At least the ones that came out and voted.
Well, so what do you do?
I mean, you know,
I guess you get drugged down the toilet with everybody else.
You get what you get, and you just have to prepare for a society that's driving towards a cliff. And you know, at some point, you can
That society is preparing to take you down for your preparations. Because you realize that one of the people on the potential threats list are people that are canning food.
Yes, I realize
because we may have a food shortage. People who are they call them hoarders. They have negative names for them. If you're doing anything to prepare for a crisis that may come, you're the bad guy.
Yes, that's why you got to keep that stuff quiet.
And government agencies are actually directed to seek you out as if you're a perpetrator.
Yes, because they can share your hoard with other people because you're being unfair. Because everybody has to share in the new America.
I'm Greg. He's Chip. Welcome to the Socio-Political Horror Show. We'll be right back.
News Guardians on Fox Radio 910.
So, those that forget history are doomed to repeat it, and those who remember it are doomed to be drugged down by those who've forgotten it, dragging them into doing it over and over again.
Yep. Well, there's a certain satisfaction of saying I told you so.
There's no satisfaction in it. I get no satisfaction from this.
I get a little bit.
Well, I don't.
Well, okay. I'd much prefer to change the course of history than to get a little bit of satisfaction by knowing that I was intellectually superior and knew what was going on. But I'm not going to. I certainly would trade that in a heartbeat for a change in direction.
I'm not so sure it wouldn't be better to just not know.
Well, I think you're right. Sometimes it's like that old Matrix movie where, you have a choice between taking the red pill or the blue pill. And, one of the characters said, ignorance is bliss, baby.
Well,
until it happens, until you fall in, you're left wondering what the heck happened.
So, what the heck is happening in the special election for the 38th district, Senate district? That's the one where what was his name?
Pucket.
Where Pucket resigned in the midst of some sort of bribe situation where they were going to give him a state job. And that turned the balance of power over to the Republican Party in the Senate, and now there's an investigation and blah, blah, blah. Well, to fill the seat, there's a special election, and we're in the middle of the campaign for it right now.
There's a lot of money being pumped into it, so there's a lot of there are ads flying. Since we're a part of that market, if you're watching NBC or CBS, you're probably seeing some of the ads. In fact, I've seen the ads quite a bit. So, Bearing Drift, the quasi-conservative voice of Virginia, did a pretty good article on this, comparing the ads, because one of the Democrats are whining that one of the ads is unfair. But the ad I've seen more is the one from, the guy's name is Mike Himes. And he is the Democrat running in the race, although you wouldn't know it from the ad because they realize that being a Democrat in that district now is not a helpful thing with the war on coal and all that stuff. In fact, that's what they're complaining about is, Himes is, wants to get rid of the coal industry in that area, which is a big part of their economy.
But doesn't he sit on the board of a coal company?
Yeah, but it doesn't matter because, that's what they're saying. Well, he's not going to go to get rid of coal. Well, every other Democrat's going to vote for it, and having a Democrat in there is probably he's going to go along with the majority. So I think that's a valid argument. If I was there, I wouldn't vote for Mike Himes because regardless of whether he's a coal executive or not, he's still a Democrat, and he's going to go along with that whole global warming, coal killing stuff. I get that. But
wouldn't it make more sense if you were the Republican? Wouldn't you want to run a campaign against that guy to make Democrats not like him by claiming he's an a coal company executive? Wouldn't you want to suppress the Democrat vote by making it look like he's some sort of anti-global warming infiltrator?
No, he's got he's got a warm and fuzzy ad. What the Middle Resolution is running an ad that basically compares. Mike Himes is an ally of Terry McAuliffe and Barack Obama, so they're going on the whole gin up the base and get them out the vote. And in all honesty, that coal is the big issue there, so it probably makes sense. But the ad I see more is the Mike Himes ad attacking his opponent, which his name is Ben Chafin. He's a House of Delegates member. And what's really interesting about this ad is that he beats him up because he voted to spend $430 million on a politician's palace in in Richmond.
The new General Assembly office building.
Really. So now we could argue using the logic that you used about 581. Now the General Assembly building's kind of beat up and old and has some issues, some real issues.
It works.
It works. So I would have voted against it too. But every single Democrat in the Senate voted for the same bill. Every single Democrat. So they're beating up Ben Chafin for voting for a bill, it wasn't a separate bill. It was stuck in a big spending $75 billion spending bill. They're beating him up for voting for something in the middle of a bill that every single Democrat in the Senate voted for. And presumably he would have voted for too, because he would have gone along with every other senator in the state legislature. Well,
what's the theme of today's show? The truth doesn't matter. Just whatever gets the job done is all that matters. That's the reality, and if that gets the job done, it doesn't matter if it's true or not.